We've all been there. You pour hours, energy, and passion into something. A project, a piece of art, a story, a presentation, even a personal detail. And when you finally share it with the world, instead of applause, what shows up is negative criticism. That gut punch, that sense of unfairness or anger is universal. Today, I want to talk about how to deal with that frustration. And no, not to help you pretend it doesn't hurt, but to show you how to turn it into a tool that helps you grow without paralyzing you or stealing your motivation. In this video, you're not going to learn how to fake being tough when you're not. What you're going to learn is how to turn your pain into fuel, so the very thing they criticized can become a masterpiece. Your first reaction to criticism is almost always emotional, not rational. It might be anger. How dare they say that? It might be sadness. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought. It might be wounded pride. They don't understand what I tried to do. And right after that comes the temptation to quit, to think maybe it's better to flip burgers for the rest of your life and forget about being an artist. The most common mistake is trying to ignore or suppress that emotion. You try not to feel something you're already feeling. You try to bury the discomfort as if nothing were happening. But the truth is, it's healthier to acknowledge it. Frustration is normal. It means you actually care about what you're doing. The key is not to stay stuck in it. One powerful exercise is to stop and name the emotion. This frustrates me. I'm angry. I feel disappointed. Putting a label on it already begins to shrink its power. Recognizing emotions, verbalizing them, and being aware of them keeps them from becoming giants. Try this quick exercise. Don't think about an elephant. Whatever you do, don't think about an elephant. What popped into your head? Exactly. The mind doesn't work in negatives. It can get distracted, but it can't repress something on command. In fact, studies show that when the human mind tries to suppress a thought or a feeling, it often grows stronger. With that in mind, let's deal with these feelings. A common mistake is fusing what we do with who we are. If someone criticizes your work, they're not criticizing you as a whole human being. They're reacting to one aspect of what you've shared. Negative criticism doesn't define your worth. It's just an opinion, often a subjective one. For example, a writer receives a harsh comment on a novel. They can interpret it as, "I'm not cut out to be a writer," or they can see it as, "This person didn't enjoy this particular story." That's a huge difference. When you learn to separate your identity from your work, you can process feedback with more clarity. Some people tie their entire self-worth to a single skill or talent, as if their center of gravity existed outside themselves. But how can you define yourself entirely by something that's supposed to evolve? Was the greatest artist, the best writer, or the best actor in the world born already knowing everything? Of course not. Everyone has a past, and perfection is a destination reached through a road paved with mistakes. If what I'm saying weren't true, we'd have invented the light bulb back when humans were still hunting mammoths. But that's not how it works. You learn by experimenting, by failing, by making mistakes. The very first thing we do when we try the walk is fall flat on our butts. This connects to how you handle criticism, but also to the fact that not everyone knows how to give it. There are constructive criticisms and there are destructive ones. The first type helps. The second type is just noise. Constructive criticism usually points out a problem, but also offers a clue on how to improve. Example, the story is interesting, but the characters could use more depth. Destructive criticism doesn't aim to help. It only seeks to tear down. Example, this is garbage. You don't know how to write. The strategy here is simple. For constructive criticism, listen to it, analyze it, and use it as raw material to grow. For destructive criticism, let it go. Don't waste energy on someone who isn't looking for dialogue. Maybe it's worth recognizing that destructive critics often don't want to help you at all. A useful question to ask yourself is, what can I learn from this? If there's a clear answer, take it. If not, let it go. A huge source of frustration comes from believing that receiving negative criticism means you failed. But in reality, criticism is unavoidable in any creative or professional process. In fact, receiving criticism means your work is reaching someone, and that's progress. Would you really prefer that your work caused indifference? Indifference might be the most destructive criticism of all, just without words. Let's think about historical examples. Great inventors were mocked before being recognized. Thomas Edison, for instance, was fired more than once for supposedly being unproductive. Nikola Tesla's theories about alternating current were widely ridiculed. Writers now considered classics were rejected multiple times. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was rejected by 12 publishers, yet J.K. Rowling didn't give up. Stephen King's Carrie was rejected 30 times. He lived in a trailer, borrowing money because he could barely afford food. What would the world look like if these authors and inventors had given up because of criticism? Here are some practical tools. Pause before responding. Never reply defensively in the heat of the moment. Take a few hours or even a day. Write it out. Put down what you feel even if you never send it. It helps release tension. Look for the intention behind the criticism. Is this someone who wants to help or just vent their frustration? Lean on your past achievements. Remind yourself of what you've already done well, so one comment doesn't erase it all. Practice self-compassion. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend in the same situation. And my personal favorite? Turn frustration into motivation. Use that "I'll prove I can" energy as fuel, but channel it constructively, not vengefully. Push forward and fix every single issue to create a stronger version of your work. With time, many criticisms that sting at first turn into valuable lessons. What frustrates you today may become a turning point tomorrow. If you notice the same feedback repeating, maybe there's a useful pattern. If it's isolated or contradictory, maybe it's not worth so much weight. The important thing to remember is that criticism itself isn't the enemy. When Edison was asked if he felt frustrated after failing 1,000 times before creating the light bulb, he replied that the light bulb was simply an invention that required 1,000 steps. The real enemy is letting frustration paralyze you. Handling frustration in the face of criticism isn't easy, but it's an art you can learn with practice. First, you recognize the emotion, then you separate your identity from the criticism, then you filter what's useful and what's not. Over time, criticism stops being a wall that blocks you and becomes a staircase that lifts you higher. So next time you face a harsh comment, remember it's not the end of your journey, it's part of it. And the way you choose to respond can make all the difference.